Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Modern.NET Show, the premier .NET podcast focusing entirely on the knowledge, tools, and frameworks that all .NET developers should have in their toolbox. This episode is a slight departure from the standard episode format, as it's a snippet of a guest appearance I had on Coder Radio. I was invited to discuss GitHub's Spec-Kit on Coder Radio, as I'd been talking about it on the Discord server for that show for a while, and really believe in its transformative power as one of the better coding with AI frameworks. During the episode, I brought up ClawdBot, which immediately aged the episode. ClawdBot had gone through 2 name changes since that episode was recorded and this bonus episode was released. First to MoltBot, and then to OpenClaw. Another thing to note is that since this episode went live, Michael has opened up his Code for Climate 2026, the Mad Botter Earth Day Open Source Challenge, for anyone in K-12 or college education in the United States. So if you know folks who would be interested, send them the link. There are some amazing prizes up for grabs, including a couple of System 76 computer systems and a paid internship at Michael's company, the Mad Botter Inc. Anyway, let's get to the episode.
Hello, and welcome to Coder Radio. Today I'm speaking with Jamie Taylor, who is, of course, the host of the Modern.NET podcast, among other things. A pretty big .NET guy, loves some C's that are sharp. It's a great conversation. We kind of jump around. It's less .NET focused than you think. A lot on Spec-Kit, which is something I was very unaware of, but has been released by GitHub as part of their frankly large and somewhat confusing array of developer tools powered by AI. Yeah, it's a great chat. We also accidentally kind of stumble upon, I think it's called MoltBot now, but it was called the ClawdBot when we recorded it, which subsequently in the 48, 72 hours since the recording has just blown up all over Twitter and Reddit. It's the, host it yourself AI. It's pretty cool. I'm actually going to be doing a tutorial on getting that set up on a home Linux server, possibly a Mac Mini. So fun stuff to look forward to. All right. As always, check out alice.dev if you need any data work or development work done. And here's the show. All right. I've got Jamie Taylor of the Modern.NET podcast, and I believe a Microsoft MVP. Am I correct?
That is correct. Michael. Thank you ever so much for having me. I just want to say real quick before we do anything. First time, long time, right? I've been listening to the show since the beginning. Well, maybe not the beginning, but all the way back when it was, Jupiter Broadcasting and stuff. So big fan of you, big fan of the show as well.
Awesome. I appreciate it. But I was listening to your show when it was called the, I believe, .NET Core podcast.
Thank you very much.
back in the ancient times, right?
Yeah, in the before times.
So I understand you're here to take me to school today. We were chatting in the Discord, which folks, you should join the Discord, about something called Spec-Kit, which went right over my head. So what the hell is that?
Yeah, so first thing we need to say is obviously in computer science, naming things is one of the difficult things to do, right? So there's loads of different things called Spec-Kit. But I'm hoping that we can talk about something very specific today that is a GitHub release. So it's on GitHub. You go to github.com/github/Spec-Kit. And the idea is it's a kind of like a specification-driven toolkit for whichever AI agent you want to involve. Now, obviously, it's a GitHub project, so they probably want you to use Copilot, but I don't use Copilot, so I can't really say how good it is. But the idea is you open Spec-Kit in a directory with your code, and you say, hey, agent, we're going to work on some stuff, but I'm going to provide you with the specification and a plan and a bunch of tasks, and then you're going to do it. So the idea is it's like back and forth, building up a very detailed plan of what you want to do. Rather than going, hey, AI, build me the thing, it's like, here's all of the information you need and maybe some research stuff. Now go build it. Right? Which sounds like a really big, lofty task, but actually Spec-Kit helps you to do that by, if there are gaps in what you're telling the LLM, it says, hey, go to Google or your search engine of choice, or look in the code and fill in the gaps of knowledge and tell the user what you've found, right?
Interesting. So is it Is it almost like you're developing a project plan up front and then feeding that in, or is it conversational?
So it's kind of a bit of both. The idea is that we live in a world where the code is king and the specification is kind of this woolly thing that somebody else writes, maybe a business person, maybe a BA of some kind, maybe a project manager of some kind, someone who probably doesn't know much about the technology you're going to implement, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, right? We always want to try and delay the technology decisions until the last minute because then that gives us more options to play with. So in that respect, having someone who isn't technical, who isn't an engineer of some kind, having them write the spec makes that easier because they don't know what an ORM is or what programming language you're going to use, right? So you get to make that decision. And we've done that for a very long time where we'll write a spec and then we'll build the feature. Well, this is actually flipping it on its head, where what you want to do is you want to keep the specification in source code because then you can see where you've come from. So rather than having your Jira tickets or your Trello tickets or whatever separate, you keep it all in house in the code base, and then you can see how we got to where we are. So every time you build a feature, there's a bunch of files that you create with Spec-Kit that outline how that feature is meant to be built, and then you finish that feature, merge back to main, and carry on with your life. Make another feature, merge back to main, and then there's this like a record of who built what and when and what was the decisions, almost like having an ADR, like a architecture design record. And the idea, you're working with the LLM to help you write those, and then you say to the LLM, "I'm happy with that. Now, either you can go write the code, or I'll go write the code, or we'll write the code together. Or maybe I'll spawn 12 of you to write a whole bunch of code, and I'll write some code, and eventually we'll come back together and we'll have the feature written, right?" And like I said, I feel like it gives you better results than just going, "Hey, AI, write me the thing," right?
Right, right. So you mentioned you can pick NA, so it supports all the kind of like the Claudes, the Chat GPTs of world, most of the big
Yeah,
boys, right?
yeah, that's right.
I could totally see going greenfield with this and saying, okay, I want to build, I don't know, I out of ideas today. Let's say a to do list app because that's what you do when you're building
Yeah.
things. I guess the first thing everybody builds is a to do list. I could totally see writing, setting it up with Spec-Kit in it. I'm on my way. What if you have an existing project, which I think most of us do, right? Kind of
Okay.
brownfield, kind of enterprisey. Where does Spec-Kit come in there?
Okay. So here's my workflow, right? I realize we're going
Sure.
elbow deep straight away, but let's
Let's do
talk
it.
through my workflow. Yeah, yeah, why not, right? So I've got a pre-existing project. Maybe I've been brought onto a project, or maybe it's something I've been working on for ages and I've just sort of left to the wayside for a little while. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, before I even involve SpecKit, hey, AI helper, it's been forever since I looked at this, or I'm brand new to the team, help me to get onboarded by go and read through the code and give me an idea of where the different modules are. Maybe if I'm in object oriented, maybe where all the classes are, where all the helper functions are, which libraries we're using, what technologies are we using. I don't even know yet, right? Hopefully that's already been done because we're in that world now. So hopefully someone on the team's already done that and they're keeping that up to date. But if not, hey, AI, I'm using Claude. So hey, Claude, go deep dive into the code and give me some documentation to get me started.
Mm,
And from there, I can say, okay, cool. Now we've got Spec-Kit there, Spec-Kit init, which just basically says, go create a bunch of folders in my project that are specific to the LLM that I use. So I'm using Claude Code. You may be using Copilot, or you might be using Qwen 3 or Windsurf or any of the other supported AI systems. And what it will do is it'll dump a bunch of script files in there. So some of these, this is where it gets a bit confusing because I said script files, and so some of them are PowerShell. You can have them in PowerShell or Bash, and
okay.
then there are Markdown files that sit with it. So, for instance, with Claude, you can have slash commands, so you can put forward slash and then the name of something, and then if there is a Markdown file, it will read through the Markdown file and process that. These work a little bit different. there's a markdown file that links to a shell script or a PowerShell script, and those PowerShell scripts have like helper functions. Like maybe every so often it needs to clear the context, or maybe it needs to read something from the user. So it sets up a whole bunch of stuff about how it should behave, as well as telling the LLM, okay, so the user is about to give you a specification for a thing. Be ready, and be ready to create like a Git branch if there isn't one, and get ready to make sure we're on main and we've pulled recently, so that then when you create the branch, you're not creating it from an old version of main, right? So
Right,
there's a
right,
whole bunch of setup for it. And if I'm Brownfield, I what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Spec-Kit, I'm going to install in inverted commas Spec-Kit and init it, and then I'm going to say, hey, Spec-Kit, first thing I want to do is I want to say, hey, go create a constitution, right? So the constitution is this markdown file that sets up the um, all of the different coding standards for the particular project we're looking at. So it might set up things like, always use a linter, use this particular editor config, or test-driven development, or so I'm
uh,
from a .NET
right,
C# land, so it might say, make sure that you do .NET format, which is kind of like linting, but not 100% every
right. Like a
time that you do
Rubu-Cop or
something.
a flake kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah,
Setting up the rules of how the code should be written, and then setting up things like, if you are doing test-driven development, this much code coverage is a bare minimum. Or maybe, first-party packages first, then widely supported third-party packages, and then maybe experimental ones if there isn't something that supports what we want to do. So the first thing it does is it sets that up. And then that way, regardless of what you ask your LLM to write, it will always look at that first and say, am I about to write something that's insecure, that violates the constitution, so you've got that operating environment already. And because these are markdown files, you can jump in and edit them as you go, or you can gently nudge the LLM as it's writing them and say, actually, yeah, that's great, but maybe I care about, because maybe this is a web app, maybe I care about what OWASP have to say. So I go and say, "Go find the rules that OWASP recommend for this type of application development," and then it'll grab those, put that in the constitution, and then that way you might not get, so you'll be protected against things like SQL injection and things like that, and cross-site scripting and all of these wonderful things that you no longer have to worry about, because all the code that you're gonna write with this LLM, it's already protected against. So that's the first thing it does. So yeah, you do spec first. So that's specification. Then you say, here's the spec. I'm thinking like project manager, BA level. This is what we want, a feature that allows the customer to check out. We're not talking about technology. We're not talking about the hows. We're not talking about the whys. We're talking about the whats. And you can be as detailed as you can, or just say, build me a checkout system, whatever, right? I like to put, and this is going to scare some folks because some folks don't like lots of typing of words. They like to jump in with the code, but I like to put in as much detail as I can. So I'll probably do 3 or 4 paragraphs of, this is my specification for this one feature, and I'll go ahead and hit return. What happens then is Spec-Kit goes, cool, that's awesome. Hey, LLM, the user has given you this specification. I want you to read through it, split it into an actual specification. So split it into like user stories and functional requirements and things like, what was the user not clear about, that kind of thing. So it automatically starts asking you questions about, well, you said a checkout system, and I can't see that there is a store in this kind of app. Are you sure that you want a checkout system for this web API? I think you've got this project the wrong way around. So it starts to ask you these questions about what you want, what technologies you want, all this kind of stuff. And then
so
all the way through that, you can gently nudge the LLM in different directions. I am talking lots, so please
no,
do
no, that's
interrupt
great,
me,
great. I just
Mike.
want to clarify something.
Yeah.
So is Spec-Kit basically, I mean, this is a wild simplification, but it's almost like guardrails and a go-between between you and the LLM, right? So
Yeah.
instead of like opening Claude CLI or whatever and saying, build me a, like you said, checkout page, I don't know, with Paddle or Stripe or something like that.
Mhm.
Spec-Kit's like, in my constitution, we always use Ruby, we always use Stripe, just making this up, right? This is our Rubu-Cop file. You must follow these rules as defined in this file. We never, ever, ever, I don't know, we never, ever want to like write inline raw SQL, right? Because that's a attack vector in Rails.
Yeah.
it's someone's going to correct me and say there's ways to do it safely. I know, but I'm trying to give a simple case, right? So like a common thing, like I use Warp a lot, and a common thing will be like, I'll be like, I want to copy these files from this server to that server, la la la, right? I use it for a lot of DevOps stuff. And I've learned that the trick is to always, because I use Claude underneath, always ask it, do you understand what I actually mean? And
Yes.
do you have any questions? Right? Just like you would with like an intern, right? Or a a super junior developer. And is Spec-Kit kind of doing that? Because it sounds like it is. It sounds like you write the Constitution, and if, let's say, Claude or whatever comes back with, well, I'm going to do it like this, Spec-Kit would actually, before even talking to you, it seems like, no, that violates this rule of you must pass, whatever this .NET validator is, or you must use libraries only. I'm assuming you could say all kinds of things, right? Like, I only want to use NuGet packages published by Microsoft, theoretically, if you had, right? Is it doing that proactively, or is that still something you have to intervene?
So what it's doing is it's putting your LLM agent, assistant, whatever, in that mode already. So it's telling you what the rules are. So then when it
Okay.
goes away and generates that code, it already knows I'm not allowed to use, for instance, I'm only allowed to use Microsoft NuGet packages, or if I'm only allowed to use these particular things that are available in my Ruby environment. And maybe I'm not allowed to use this kind of coding or that kind of coding, right? Then I'm trying to think of things that are abstract enough that probably apply to lots of different languages rather than just .NET things, because then only I
How
understand it.
about
And
where applicable, always use the ORM, right?
yeah,
It doesn't
exactly,
matter which
exactly
ORM.
right.
But
Yeah.
okay, so just to like really hammer down on this point, it's not that it's a middleman; it's that it's actually seeding the context, and when necessary, when the context has to be cleared, it's re-updating the context to the current state with the current rules based on your initial creation of the spec per feature. I know that sounded very persnickety, but
Thank you for listening to this bonus episode of the Modern.NET Show. If you're interested in hearing the full conversation that Michael and I had, head over to the link in the show notes or to coder.show/640. And definitely subscribe or follow or whatever Coder Radio. It's one of the better technology agnostic podcasts for developers out there. Anyway, thanks a lot, folks.